If you're anything like me, then as well as having a love for fantasy tabletop games, you also have a love for fantasy novels. And for me, my favourite game is Mordheim, and my favourite novels are the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. Now, I've always wanted there to be a tabletop game for these, especially a skirmish game, but one doesn't exist. But Mordheim allows for a lot of creativity. So what started as a small idea to sort of change a rule here, change a rule there, sort of reword them a little bit and make a warband for Discworld turned into a big 18-month project that ends up in this. Hello everybody and welcome to Weekend Wargaming. My name's Alex. I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. In this video, I am so excited to share this with you. This has been 18 months of work and is, I think, my best work yet. So please come with me today as we explore the Ankh Morpork City Watch unofficial Mordheim supplement. This video is going to be part supplement read-through and part painting tutorial. And before we get into it, it's important to note that I don't own any copyright for the Discworld. I did reach out to Narrativia, the copyright owners, around a year ago to ask permission to distribute this PDF, but I didn't hear anything back. However, reading through the terms on the Discworld website, I think we're going to be okay. And it's important to note that while I do have a physical copy of this in my hand, I will not be distributing or selling any copies of this. You will be able to get this PDF for free, and I'll tell you how you can do that at the end of the video. With all that being said, let's get into it. The miniature that we are going to be painting today is the Dwarf Landsnecht by Vae Victis Miniatures, which I printed out on my Elegoo Mars Saturn IV Ultra and then primed using AK Interactive's fine grey primer. And the first step of this paint job is going to be giving a base coat to all of the skin areas with Cadian flesh tone. And whilst we're painting today, I'm going to read you some of my favourite sections from this book, and I'll put the text on the screen so you can read along if you wish. We're going to start washing and then highlighting the skin, and whilst we're doing that, I want to read you the dedication right at the start of this book. They may be called the Palace Guard, the City Guard, or the Patrol. Whatever the name, their purpose in any work of heroic fantasy is identical. It is around chapter 3 or 10 minutes into the film to rush into the room, attack the hero one at a time, and be slaughtered. No one ever asked them if they wanted to. This book is dedicated to those fine men, and to the man without whom none of this could have existed. Sir Terry Pratchett. When you look through this book yourself, you'll see there's loads of backstory and loads of lore for the Warband itself, including a story about how the Ankh Morpork City Watch ended up in Mordheim. But for this video, we're just going to go through some smaller pieces. So let's begin with the Warband itself. Like many other Mordheim Warbands, this one is split into two subtypes, of which we have the Night Watch and the Day Watch, and each of them have a few special rules. So if you're playing as the Night Watch, you get the Spirit of Vimes, which increases your leadership bubble from 6 inches to 12 inches, and you also get another called Summon the Watch. Now for this, what happens at the start of each of your recovery phase, from the second one, you may roll a dice, and on a 4+, you're going to have another member join your warband. So you'll get a recruit armed with a truncheon. The stats for those are later on in the book. And they're going to enter from a random battlefield edge. So I determine that with a roll of a dice. If the roll is unsuccessful, you may attempt to summon the recruit again in subsequent turns. And then at the end of the game, he leaves your warband and goes back to his own. And it's important to note that you can only have one recruit join you. So once you've got that roll successfully, that's it. You can't do it again later. Now, if you play as the Day Watch, you have Familiar Terrain, which gives everybody +1 to climbing tests because they're super familiar with the environment. And they have Community Watch. So when you come to doing your exploration at the end of the game, you get to re-roll 1 extra dice during this phase because citizens help assisting you search the ruins. Jumping back into the painting here, we're using Smoke Black from AK Interactive's 3rd gen line, and we're going to paint his mustache, his beard and his eyebrows. Also worth noting that later on I come back in and I base coat his breastplate and his sword. There's no reason I didn't do that now, I just didn't think about it, so you can also do that at this step if you want. Once you're happy with it, we will move on to our cloak, which we are going to prime with Rhinox hide. And you'll see that we're also going to move on to some feathers and some of the uniform areas in its hat with this. Now, whilst we're doing this, let's have a look at building our warband. So, as akin to most, you have 500 gold crowns to start with, and you can have a maximum of 12 warriors in the warband. From that, you've got the watch captain, which you have to have 1. There are sergeants, of which you can have up to 2, and you can also have up to 2 corporals. And then for your henchmen, you can have as many constables or recruits as you like, and you can have up to 1 troll. And you can see here, this is where I realised that I missed doing the breastplate and the sword, so I'll do that now. And then also, while we're talking about things that we missed, I forgot to do the eye patch, so we'll come back into there with some Rhinox hide and quickly cover that. The next step of the painting process is one of the bigger ones, and that's where we're going to base all of our Mordheim brown, starting with the leather of his boots and his wooden leg, and then we're also going to go onto all the inner folds of the Landsknecht uniform. Whilst we do that, let's have a look at some of the equipment. There's your basic equipment, but what's really fun is the special equipment that's been written especially for this warband, and these are items that are inspired directly from the books. Now, I'm not going to read out all of them, but I'm going to call out 2 of my favourites here. So there's dwarf bread, which is rock hard. Dwarf bread never goes stale, and is terribly sustaining. A traveller can go for miles just knowing there's dwarf bread in their pack. Proper dwarf bread has to not just be baked, but forged, with gravel of course, and dropped in rivers, and dried out, and sat on, and left, and looked at every day, and then put away again. A hero with a piece of dwarf bread can eat it at the beginning of any of his recovery phases as long as he's not engaged in hand-to-hand combat. This restores all wounds he's previously lost during the game. Dwarf bread can only be eaten once, which brings great relief to dentists everywhere. Another favourite item of mine here is the gun. Now this is a range 48-inch strength 4 gun with some following special rules. So there's a save modifier, move or fire, pick target, and mind of its own. Move or fire is basic, you can't move and shoot in the same turn. And there's a save modifier, which means it's going to be a -2 instead of -1, which you would usually have for strength 4. Now, pick target allows the bearer of the gun to target any enemy model in sight and not just the closest one. However, this is where it gets a little bit fun, is where we look at mind of its own. This weapon is sentient and may not always obey its handler's commands. When making a ranged attack with the gun, its wielder must make a leadership test. If the test is passed, the rifle shoots at the intended target. If it is failed, the rifle will shoot at a random target within its maximum fire range, including friendly models. The gun may not target the model carried. As we apply our Agrax Earthshade into the recesses of the Landsknecht uniform, please do take a moment to like this video if you're enjoying it. There was a lot of work that went into this supplement, and putting this video together was quite difficult, trying to find a good balance between parts of the book and parts of the painting. So if you did like it, please do hit that button and subscribe to the channel so you can see future releases. Liking this video and subscribing are 2 of the 3 steps that you need to do to be in for a chance of winning this miniature. I will send it anywhere in the world completely for free. There is one more thing that you need to do, and I'll tell you a little bit later what that is. Now, moving past our skill table and our 5 new special skills for the warband, we come into the hero and henchman entries. So here we have all of our stats and our hiring costs. I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's something that I really wanted to call out here, and this is the other races in the Discworld section. This is super fun and one of my favourite parts of this book. So the model we're painting here is the same model that I used as the head of my warband when I started playtesting this around a year ago. And that's a dwarf. Now, how can you have a dwarf in a human warband? Well, this is how. In the colourful towns and cities of Discworld, a delightful tapestry of diverse races weave through bustling streets and crumbling alleyways. Gargoyles watch over city buildings, zombies undertake various roles, and spirited werewolves find their place in society alongside vampires and even orangutans. Embrace this rich diversity as you craft your City Watch warband, allowing different races to assume any role, except for troll henchmen, who will assert their insistence on remaining as trolls with a gentle bop on their head. While stats largely remain constant, some characteristics for various races may vary, and some may also have special rules as well as an extra hiring cost. For example, our dwarf here costs an additional 15 gold to hire him, so if you want him as your watch captain, you take the base watch captain cost of 60 crowns, and then you add the 15 crowns to be a dwarf, so it's a total of 75. Going back over to our painting, and we are doing our top highlights here with our screaming skull. And on the hat and on the feathers, we want to make sure that we put in some especially nice crisp lines, as these are the real focal areas of the model and what is going to draw people's eye. So if you get any overspill here, it's totally fine. Just go back over with your base layers, and so you can bring this up as a nice crisp highlight. Next up, we are going to start introducing that orange that the City Watch are famous for. To do this, we're going to make a 70-30 mix of Mornfang brown and Jokero orange, both from Citadel, and we're going to thin this down 50-50 with water. Leaving the shadow in the deepest recesses, we're going to start to highlight the brown areas on the inner folds of the uniform. Now, because our paint is quite thin, we're going to need to do a few coats of this, but it will dry very quickly, so this won't take as long as you think. We're just going to take our time and go over each inner fold of this uniform, making sure that we apply nice, thin, neat layers. It takes a little bit of getting used to get your consistency right here, so if your paint's too thin and it spills over into the recesses, don't worry, you could just wick it up and then reapply your Agrax Earthshade before coming back in with a slightly thicker consistency of paint and getting these colours down. Now we're going to apply the same theory to the feathers here, leaving the shadow in the deepest recesses and really taking our time to give us some nice crisp and bold highlights on both of the outer feathers. Once we're happy with those, we are going to make another mix, and this time it's going to be 30-70 of those same brown and orange, and this time we're going to apply the coat even thinner to a narrower area of the brown. This is going to build a really nice gradient, but again, we are going to need to do this in a few thin coats. And whilst we do that and then move on to our next steps, let's have a look at one of the scenarios in the book. This is my personal favourite, and this is called Tour of the City. The narrative behind this is that there are tourists since Two Flower that are now travelling to Ankh Morpork. However, some of them are falling through the rifts, of which you'll read about in the introduction. Now, the patrician really wants to make sure that tourism continues to boom in Ankh Morpork, so he sends you to protect the tourist. When you set up the game, you're going to put the tourist in the middle of the board, and then you're going to decide who is going to be the rescue party and who is going to be the kidnapper. What your objective is to get the tourist and get them off of your board edge. However, being distracted by everything, as tourists often are, they move randomly each turn. And the details of these rules are explained on the special rules section of the page. Jumping back over to our painting now, we are going to finish the highlights on the cape and on his boots, and when we're happy, we are going to move on to his eyes. Now, this is going to be a bit of a more complicated step, and you really want to take your time here. So we're going to start with some contrast Black Legion from Citadel, and we are just going to very carefully paint in the whole of the eyeball itself. What this is going to do is give us a nice clean platform to work from, and also help us separate textures and surfaces when we look at the finished model. When we're happy with that, we're going to come in with some white from AK, and leaving just a very thin black line around the edge, we're going to dot in this white. Next up, for the iris, we're going to use Baharoth Blue from Citadel, and again we're going to very carefully dot this in, making sure that we leave a little bit of the white of the eye above the iris. If we were to just dot it straight in the middle, we'd give him a case of crazy eyes. Finishing this off, we're going to go back to our Black Legion, and we are just going to add a tiny dot in the middle of the iris. Now you may need to go back and forth a few times to do this, but don't worry, take your time. This is a really difficult step of painting models at this scale, but if you're patient, you will get there. Once you're happy with the eyes, we can move on to highlighting his eyebrows, his mustache, and his beard with English Grey from AK Interactive 3rd Gen. Again, just take your time here and just focus on the raised areas of the beard, mustache, and eyebrows. And whilst we do that, let's have a look at the hired swords that are available, or hired sword, I suppose, in this case. We have Barbarians. They are 30 gold crowns to hire and have a 15 gold crown upkeep. Now there's a bit of fun lore here that brings in the old Barbarians that you know and love from the Discworld. And they start with a two-handed sword and a rather old and tattered loincloth that protects an opponent's eyes more than the barbarian themselves. For skills, they start with strongman and may pick from combat, speed, and strength when they gain a new skill. Following on from this, we have our Dramatis Personae. And for that, we have our one special character who you'll know from the introduction of this book, and that is Thistlewhip Mumblethorn. Now, Thistlewhip costs 88 gold crowns to hire, and he increases your Warband rating by 88. Fans of the Discworld will know why the number 8 is relevant here. So he starts with a wizard's robe, a hat, and a staff, and he has the following special skills. He has sorcery, arcane lore, leap, and dodge. He also comes with 3 unique special rules. Now you can't have a new wizard without new spell laws, so we have the Octarine Power spell law, featuring some of my favourites here as Thormic Custard, Misplaced Whatnots, and the Great Robes of Fire. And as we come to the last steps of our painting, we also come to the end of this supplement. There's a little one-pager here about creating your warband and where you can source the models. Of course, there's the officially licensed Discworld miniatures, which you can buy resin casts of from Microart Studios. There's also a small collection of 3D sculptors where you can buy the models online and 3D print them, or have somebody print them for you. My favourite of which being Vae Victis, who sculpted this incredible dwarf that we've been painting today. The last thing we need to do here is to give our watch captain a colourful base to match the colourful world that he comes from. So to do this, we're going to re-prime the base with our smoke black from AK, and then we're going to come in with some desaturated primary colours. So we'll just take some regular colours that we have that you can see on the screen here, mix them with Rakarth Flesh to really desaturate them, and then we are going to randomly apply them to the different flagstones on this base. This is going to give us some nice contrast and something that's really going to stand out on the tabletop. Now, obviously we can't leave our base quite this bright because we are in Mordheim, so what we're going to do is give it 2 coats of Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to apply this fairly liberally to really darken down and dirty those stones. Once our Agrax has fully dried, we're going to come in with a light dry brushing of Rakarth Flesh. The key here is to be super light and go in circular motions. This is going to scratch up our surface and give us a nice dusty texture. And when we're happy, the last step is to take our contrast Black Legion and give a couple of thin coats over our base rim. Once that's dried, you should have a dwarf watch captain that looks something like this. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I really hope this has inspired you to create your own Ankh Morpork City Watch Warband for Mordheim. Now, if you do want to give it a go, there's going to be a link to a Google Drive in the description where you can download a free copy of the PDF of this supplement. As well, one of you is going to win this model. So, as I mentioned earlier, you need to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and the last thing you need to do is leave a comment telling me which Mordheim supplement you would like to see next from the Discworld. And who knows, in the near future, you might just see it. I'm going to announce the winner for this miniature on the 7th of September, whilst I attend the Mordheim World Tournament in Italy. And if I can, I'll get Turamus himself to pick the winner. But until then, stay safe, be good to one another, and happy wargaming.